So, you want to start building pedals for yourself. The first thing I suggest you do is get a kit. So that means you'll have something like this where the enclosure is pre-drilled. You don't need tools for that then. And all you have to do is solder everything up and then put it in the enclosure, and it will end up looking something like this. And on the outside it might look something like this. And we're gonna go through the essential tools you need to get a kit assembled, and then we're gonna look at some other stuff I use all the time because I oftentimes go this route. I build on Vero board because there's lots of layouts on the internet, and this is the cheapest way, I'd say, to really make pedals for yourself. I'm gonna link a few sites here where you can see the Vero board layouts. So yeah, the essentials first. Let's put these aside. And of course, you're gonna need a soldering iron. I have a station here, and the only thing you need is enough power. So it has to heat up, really. Like this goes up to 400. And the other thing is a pointy tip. So that's my recommendations when you're soldering. You need precision. So that's what you really need. A tip like this wouldn't really be good. But a solder iron like this will be totally fine if you can just change the tip. And then, well, we need some solder, right? 0.5 or 1 millimeter is usually what I use. The 0.6, 0.5 are what I recommend. It's small enough, easy to work with. And then the kits usually come with pre-cut and stripped wires. If they don't, and it's a good tool to have, wire strippers and cutters. So that's a pretty essential thing. And then when you have everything here, well, you need to tighten the nuts and so on. So what you need for that is some sort of a wrench. And then lastly, you're gonna be putting the screws on, closing the lid, and you need some sort of screwdriver. And that's really the basics over there. So that's not a lot. You can get a kit done with these tools. In the end, depending where you order and so on, I think all of this would cost me, this was really cheap. These are not much. You can get away with the inexpensive one. I'd say I could get all of this under 30 euros. Actually, one thing I forgot. Some sort of helping hand. I got this little stand here. So then when I'm working on either a kit or Vero, I can just hook the board up in that and solder. And the Vero board goes in it as well. Like that. So there you go. Something like that is really useful. You can get away with something like this. I did a long while before I got that, and one more. Cutters, pliers like this, cutters. I use ones that are flush because of course you're gonna have the component leads coming off the board, so you gotta be able to cut them, keep the board clean. All right, so actually that is our essentials. Okay, so then we're gonna move into other stuff that I use, especially when I do the whole thing from scratch. When I build on Vero, I have to drill the enclosure, get the board in there nicely, and so on. So I'm just gonna go through all of the tools I commonly use. And I gotta say here, I got a lot of stuff on my YouTube page, including a really nice tutorial about how to build a fuzz pedal on a Vero board. where to order parts, and that will get you started. I also have some videos about how to do pedal graphics, and then even how to get into CAD software and make your own circuit boards and how to design them. So you can also check those out. And I gotta promote my coffee page. There's some utility boards I'm selling over there. At the moment I can't ship to US, so that sucks, but if you're from EU or any other place, you can get these from there. So these are for the foot switches, and this is a handy little thing you can use on the power jack. There we go, let's continue. All right, so then I have a set of different pliers. These I use all the time, and these cutters too, when I don't need to get that flush. Those work fine. Then cut knife. When I cut my Vero boards from bigger board, this is what I use. And then when I cut it smaller, I usually use pliers too. For the enclosure, so when you have something like this and you need to do the holes, well, it's of course good to measure carefully first. So a caliper, some kind of measuring tools, essential. You really want to be precise and careful with that. And then you want to do the holes. So I have a auto punch. Anything sharp will basically do. So what you want to do then is make a little dent on where you want your hole to be. Then I usually drill with the smaller bit first, and after that I go to my stepper bit. And this has every diameter I need, and I just use this to get the hole to the size I want. And to be able to use those, of course, some sort of drill. I just have a battery powered hand drill. I also have a smaller thing here, and then I have this thing so I can tighten the nuts on the jacks, on the pots, and so on. So those are tools then that are essential if you want to be doing your own enclosures. Then we get to the testing phase. I want to test my pedals before I box them up. So at this stage I have 4 leads coming out of my build: power, ground, in and output. I have made myself a little test box like this. You can find instructions on the internet, and I might be doing my own. So what I then do, I hook the leads up: power, input and output, and then there's an input jack for my guitar and an output jack for my amp. There we go. So that's how it would look like, having it hooked up to my test rig. And then another essential part of my test rig is this little thing. So I usually use a battery to test these up. So I've done this myself as well. Just 9-volt battery, and then you go there. So all the other connections with the foot switch turning on and off the pedal are in this box here. Another good tool would be a probe. I don't have one. I rarely need one anymore, but that's something I can recommend, because you can do that by yourself, and you could actually implement it into a test box like this. Then a multimeter is something you might really want. You can then troubleshoot with this one as well, and it's a handy tool anyways. And then boxing the pedal up, sometimes use this. So a hot glue gun can be really handy. And then for the back side of the enclosure, I do oftentimes use something like this. So I cover that up so nothing touches, then can touch this surface and accidentally ground. I try to avoid unwanted connections happening inside there. And then if I have the board in the enclosure, it can actually rest on that and it won't make a connection with the enclosure. How do I get that on there after I've cut it to a proper size? Double-sided tape. And I might actually, before that, wrap the cardboard or whatever a plastic sheet would also work. I cover it up with just some package tape. Then I also have some Scotch Blue. This is good tape in other projects as well. So that is my recommendation. Shrink tubing. You need it every now and then. And this one is for, let's say I'd have a build and I have a Vero board like this. So sometimes I just hot glue the board on top of the pots. But then of course the pots have to be well covered. They have this plastic cover on them. So then I can just glue it and stick it into the pots, and that way it doesn't get to move in the enclosure. So that works. And other times, if I'm putting the board in the enclosure this way around, what I might do is I got these little pads, furniture legs. So I might do this. I might just glue something like this on there, and then the other side has the glue, and then it sticks to the back side. I still use the cardboard trick even then. So yeah, those are some of the stuff you might want when you're boxing up your pedal. And then some other troubleshooting stuff. Alligator clips. These come handy sometimes. I got this little tool if I need to poke around. Something like this is useful if you fuck up. Well, soldier sucker. So you might need this. And yeah, especially when you're starting out and you're putting components in the wrong place and so on. So you can then clear off the old soldier. And sometimes when you do, you might, so these come in handy, just your cocktail sticks. So it might be hard to actually get the soldier off, so it doesn't stick in the wood. So then you can just do that and help it and poke the hole clear with a, well, toothpick, cocktail stick, like that one. Then when I do the Vero boards, I mark where the cuts need to be. And by cuts, I mean these things here. So what I do, and this is the first stage after I cut myself the proper size Vero board, is I mark where the cuts needs to be. Just your basic marker. I use a Sharpie usually. It's gonna do fine. This is just something I use. You don't really need it to build a pedal, but sometimes you might want to breadboard something. It's nice because if you want to build something and before you do mods to it, you can actually test them out on a breadboard like this. So what you do here is you take the schematic of the circuit and you build the pedal on here, and then you can change components around and see what kind of effect it has on the sound of the pedal. So yeah, that's nice. For the shrink tubing, I just usually use a lighter to heat them up. Super glue can become handy every now and then. Not so often though, but it's a good thing to have. And then for the Vero board builds, I call this a material, but I'm just gonna include it here. A bare copper wire, and that's for the links. And sometimes it comes handy also when you wanna do links on the locks of the pots as well, like that. That's what I've used. When you're testing your stuff out, yeah, you need a few guitar cables, right? There we go. I think that's pretty much it. That's the most common tools I use when I'm building pedals. And like I said, the essentials I already showed in the beginning, and it's not much that you need. And then you'll be able to build kits, and there's lots of places on the internet you can get those from. I'll link a few. But to me, of course, most fun is to be doing the Vero board builds. And that's when you'll need more tools. But yeah, this is it. There's gonna be a video about the most common components also. So let's check that out next. So if you wanna go this route and start making pedals on Vero board instead of kits, yeah, it's good to stock up on some components. So I'll show you what those are. Have fun. I'm off.